for the life below zero, or is it the beginning of the new era?
They warned us that life in Alaska can break even the strongest people. They said the land will test your body, your spirit, and your faith. But Chip Hailstone did not listen. When he was still a teenager, he already dreamed of a life far from the noise of cities. He wanted space, adventure, and a chance to live on his own terms. Chip was born Edward V. Hailstone in 1969 in a small Montana town called Kalispell. Life there was calm and peaceful. The mountains stood tall, and the rivers ran cold and clear. For a young boy like Chip, it was a good place to learn about nature. His parents taught him how to fish, how to hunt, and most of all, how to respect the land. They told him that every animal taken should be used completely and never wasted. They showed him that hard work and patience were the real tools of survival. As he grew older, Chip began to feel that Montana was too small for him. He wanted more challenges, something wild and untouched. At 19, he packed his few belongings and left for Alaska. At first, it was just meant to be a short trypan adventure for a season. But Alaska had a strange power. Once it gets into your heart, it never lets go. The endless tundra, the icy rivers, and the quiet beauty of snow under moonlight pulled him in. He arrived in the small Inupiat village of Nervik, about 20 miles east of Kotzebue. Life there moved slowly, ruled by nature. People still hunted and fished to live. There were no large stores, no easy roads, and no comfort, except what you made for yourself. For many outsiders, such a life would be too hard. But for Chip, it felt like home. In Nervik, Chip met Agnes. She was a local Inupiat woman who had grown up in that same harsh land. Agnes knew the ways of her ancestors. She could read the wind, follow animal tracks, and tell when a storm was coming just by watching the sky. To Chip, she was not only strong but wise. They married and began to build a life together, one based on trust, respect, and shared work. Over the years, they raised 5 daughters: Tinmiak, Irektok, Mary, Caroline, and Cutin. From the start, Chip and Agnes agreed that their children would learn everything about living close to nature. They taught them to fish, to use every part of what they caught, and to never take more than they needed. Life in Nervik was not easy. Winters were long and cruel. Temperatures could drop far below zero and stay there for months. The sun disappeared for long stretches, leaving only cold and darkness. When storms hit, the wind could shake the walls of their small home. Every piece of food had to be earned, either hunted, trapped, or fished. Each day was a mix of danger and routine. If a snow machine broke far from home, it could mean real trouble. If an injury happened during a hunt, there was often no quick way to get help. But for the Hailstone family, these risks were part of life. They did not see themselves as victims of the Arctic, but as students of it. When National Geographic launched Life Below Zero in 2013, the world got a glimpse of the Hailstones' way of life. Chip, Agnes, and their children became familiar faces to millions of viewers. The show did not glamorize their struggles. It showed the real work hauling wood, fishing through ice, building sleds, and skinning animals in freezing weather. Viewers saw Chip teaching his daughters how to handle rifles safely and how to track animals across the tundra. Agnes showed them how to clean and store food and how to respect the animals that fed them. Many fans said they admired how this family stayed strong and loving despite the hardships. Chip quickly became a fan favorite. He was calm, confident, and clever. He had a way of explaining what he was doing so that anyone could understand it. He never panicked, even when something went wrong. If a snow machine broke down, he fixed it with whatever was around. If weather turned bad, he adjusted his plan and kept going. To viewers, he seemed almost unshakably man who belonged to the land. But those who knew Alaska well often said that no one is ever truly safe there. Every hunt, every frozen river, every long trip into the wilderness could turn dangerous in seconds. People admired Chip, but they also worried. They warned that one mistake, one bad fall, or one thin patch of ice could cost him his life. Still, Chip pushed forward, confident in his skills and his family's strength. Behind the calm confidence, though, life was not always perfect. Being on a TV show brought attention that sometimes felt uncomfortable. Outsiders came asking questions, and strangers sometimes judged their choices without understanding the culture or the risks they faced. Yet through it all, the Hailstones stayed focused on what mattered, providing for their family and honoring the traditions of the Inupiat people. For Chip, Alaska had stopped being an adventure long ago. It was now home, and survival was not just a test, it was a way of life by the early 2010s. Chip Hailstone was known around the world as a man who could handle anything nature threw at him. But his biggest battle would not come from a storm or a hungry bear, it would come from the law. In the summer of 2011, something happened that changed everything. Chip went to the Alaska State Troopers to report that a local man had threatened and physically assaulted one of his daughters. As a father, Chip reacted the way many would. He wanted to protect his family. But when he asked for help, he felt that his concerns were not taken seriously. In the small village world where everyone knows everyone, trust can be complicated. What followed was a chain of events that even Chip could not have predicted. Later, Chip said that during a separate incident, one of the troopers had been aggressive toward him, putting him in fear for his safety. He believed he had to speak out. He gave statements about both events, insisting that he was telling the truth. However, when authorities looked into it, they said there wasn't enough evidence to support his claims. Things quickly turned against him. In December 2012, prosecutors accused Chip of lying to police and even of perjury, meaning they believed he had given false testimony under oath. To most people who knew him, the idea seemed shocking. Chip had built a life around honesty, hard work, and teaching his children about integrity. But now he was being called a liar by the justice system. The case dragged on for years. In 2013, Chip went to trial. Sitting in a courtroom was the opposite of everything he was used to. The man who spent his days tracking animals under open skies now had to sit under bright lights and answer legal questions. Witnesses testified, lawyers argued, and Chip tried to explain his side. He said again and again that he only wanted to protect his family and tell the truth. But in the end, the jury did not believe his story. He was found guilty of 2 counts of perjury, 2 counts of providing false information, and 1 count of tampering with evidence. The punishment was harsh 15 months in prison. Chip appealed the decision, hoping it would be overturned, but in 2017 the court upheld the conviction. For the first time in his adult life, Chip lost the one thing he valued most, freedom. In 2018, he began his sentence at the Anchorage Correctional Complex. For a man who had always lived surrounded by wilderness, being locked inside 4 walls was almost unbearable. There were no stars, no wind, no snow, only metal bars and silence. The days moved slowly. He thought about his wife, his daughters, and the life still continuing in Nurvik. Back home, Agnes became both mother and father. She hunted, fixed gear, taught the children, and kept the home running. The show continued filming, and viewers saw how strong and determined Agnes was. Many fans sent messages of support, saying how proud they were of her. Some were angry at the court system. Others said Chip should face the consequences. Meanwhile, Chip tried to stay strong. He wrote letters and focused on the future. He later said the hardest part was missing the small things, the sound of the wind, the laughter of his children, and the smell of burning wood after a long day. He realized how much those simple moments mattered. His daughters were growing fast, learning how to fish, hunt, and take care of each other. They had to grow up quickly. The family was surviving. But there was an empty space that only Chip could fill. When the day finally came for his release in August 2018, it was both joyful and emotional. Cameras caught the moment he stepped off the small plane in Nurvik. The air was sharp and cold. Agnes stood waiting, wrapped in fur, with the children close behind her. The girls ran to him, laughing and crying. It was not a quiet reunion. It was loud, messy, and full of love. For a moment, the hard months in prison disappeared. Chip was home again. But returning home did not mean everything went back to normal. He had to rebuild trust, find his rhythm, and understand the changes that had happened while he was gone. Agnes had become even stronger and more independent. The children were now capable hunters and workers in their own right. For weeks, Chip mostly watched, learning how things ran without him. Then he began helping again, fixing traps, preparing nets, repairing sleds, and teaching the children once more. Slowly, the family found balance. The first time they went hunting together after his return, everyone felt the weight of it. It was more than a hunt. It was a sign that the family was whole again. As they tracked caribou across the tundra, Chip noticed how confident his daughters had become. They no longer waited for orders. They worked side by side with their parents. He felt pride, but also humility. They had survived without him. Fans of Life Below Zero were moved by the story. Some said it showed the power of family. Others said it proved that everyone, no matter how strong, can fall and rise again. Chip rarely talked about the case afterward. He said he preferred to look forward, not back. The experience had taught him patience and reminded him of what really mattered: his family, his home, and the land that had shaped him. After returning home, Chip Hailstone had to face the truth that life had moved on without him. But instead of breaking him, this new reality pushed him to grow. He now saw things he once took for granted: the sound of snow under boots, the sight of his daughters working together. Even the quiet evenings by the fire, all of it felt like a gift. Every morning, he woke before sunrise to check traps or repair tools. Agnes managed the home with her usual steady hand. Together, they rebuilt what had been interrupted. The cameras of Life Below Zero followed them, and viewers could see the effort, the patience, and the love that went into each day. The show became more than just a survival program. It became a story about endurance, family, and second chances. Viewers saw Chip and Agnes not as TV characters, but as real people dealing with real problems. There were moments of laughter and moments of frustration, days when storms hit and food ran low, and days when they succeeded and celebrated small victories. Chip showed his daughters how to fix sleds, how to fish through ice, and how to spot weather changes by looking at the clouds. Each lesson carried more meaning now. It wasn't only about survival, it was about teaching his children how to live with awareness and respect. Over time, the rhythm of their family life returned. There were still long nights of cold and silence, still times when the snow piled higher than the roof, but there was also peace. Often said that the wilderness teaches patience better than any classroom. You can't rush the ice to melt, and you can't hurry the sun to rise. You learn to wait, to work, and to trust that each day has its purpose. For Chip and Agnes, that trust was what held them together. Social media reacted strongly to his return. Some fans were relieved to see him free and back with his family. Others still debated what had happened years earlier, but Chip didn't join the arguments. He let his actions speak for him. He hunted, taught, and worked. He reminded people that survival is not about perfection. It's about consistency. In each episode after his return, there was a quiet strength in the way he carried himself. Viewers noticed. Many said that Life Below Zero felt more emotional than before, because now the story had deeper meaning. By 2020, the Hailstone family had settled back into their steady rhythm. The children had grown, each one capable and confident. The family's teamwork showed what true resilience looks like. They faced every storm, every failure, and every long night together. For them, life was never easy, but it was always worth living. When storms hit, they laughed, adapted, and carried on. When something broke, they fixed it. When they failed to catch enough fish, they tried again the next day. Theirs was a story of patience, trust, and effort, qualities that many viewers around the world found inspiring. Chip's story also opened a larger conversation about people living in remote communities. It showed how difficult it can be when traditional ways of life meet modern systems like law and government. It also showed how easily misunderstandings can happen when two worlds collide: the world of written rules and the world of survival instincts. Some viewers said Chip's case made them think differently about fairness and communication in remote areas. Others said they respected him even more for returning to his life with humility and strength. Through everything, one truth stood out: the Arctic demands respect. It gives nothing for free, but for those who learn its ways, it offers a sense of peace that few other places can match. Chip once said that in the Arctic, every mistake teaches you something, and every success feels earned. Watching him and Agnes work side by side, it was easy to see that lesson in action. The later seasons of Life Below Zero showed the Hailstones' daily life in simple but powerful ways, setting nets under ice, hauling in fish, repairing shelters, and preparing for storms. There were laughs, tired smiles, and long silences where the only sound was the wind. These scenes reminded viewers that survival is not just about being strong. It's about being connected to the land, to your family, to yourself. Chip often told his daughters that patience and awareness were more important than speed or strength. He taught them that a good hunter listens more than he speaks, that a strong family works together quietly, and that no one survives alone. Those words became the heart of their story. Each of his daughters learned not only how to live off the land, but also how to live with purpose and gratitude. In the end, Chip Hailstone's life became a living lesson about endurance. He faced storms of nature and storms of fate. He lost his freedom for a time, but he never lost his will to start over. His story is not just about Alaska or about surviving cold winters. It's about resilience, love, and the ability to rebuild when everything seems lost. They warned us that no one can truly conquer Alaska, that it will always have the final say. But Chip Hailstone proved that while no one conquers nature, we can learn to live with it, respect it, and grow stronger from its challenges. He returned home, rebuilt his life, and continued teaching his children that survival is not just about food or fire. It's about patience, trust, and the courage to begin again. And that is why, even after everything that happened, people around the world still remember his story. Because in the coldest place on Earth, Chip Hailstone showed what it really means to be alive. They say Alaska doesn't forgive mistakes. It watches, it waits, and it tests you until you understand that the land is in charge, not you. For most people, Alaska is a place to visit, a postcard of white mountains and bright skies. But for a few, it becomes home, and not because it's easy. It's because it teaches lessons no city ever could: patience, courage, and respect for everything that lives and dies there. Chip Hailstone was one of those few. Before the world knew his name, before television cameras followed him through ice and snow, he was just a man who wanted to live free, far away from noise, rules, and the constant rush of modern life. When you look at a man like Chip, it's easy to assume he was born into this life, that maybe he grew up surrounded by snow and silence. But the truth is, his journey began hundreds of miles south, in Montana, where the mountains are tall. The rivers are cold, and the wilderness stretches wide. There, a young boy learned to shoot, to track, and to move quietly through the woods. He learned that nature doesn't argue, just is. If you want to survive, you listen, you adapt, and you respect it. Those lessons would become the foundation of everything Chip believed. As a teenager, Chip already felt different. He didn't want the same things other people wanted. He wasn't chasing money or fame. What called to him was space. Real space. He wanted to see how far he could go, to test what he was made of. So one day he packed up, left Montana, and headed north. He didn't know that the road would lead him to one of the harshest places on Earth. He didn't know that he would build a family there, or that his life would later be watched by millions. All he knew was that he wanted to live by his own rules, close to the land, where honesty and hard work were worth more than anything else. For many who come to Alaska, the first few weeks are full of beauty and wonder. The snow looks clean, the air feels sharp and new, and the silence feels peaceful. But slowly, that silence grows heavy. The cold starts to bite. The endless nights begin to press down on you. Many leave after one winter, broken by the cold and the isolation. But not Chip. Where others saw danger, he saw truth. He stayed, learning the rhythms of the Arctic, how the rivers freeze and thaw, how the winds shift before a storm, and how animals move across the tundra when the seasons change. In the remote village of Nervik, he found something even more valuable than adventure. He found community and love. The Inupiat people who lived there had called this land home for thousands of years. They didn't just survive here. They thrived by understanding the smallest details, the way snow changes under your feet, the way clouds gather before a storm, the way silence means more than words. Among them was Agnes, a strong, wise woman who could hunt, fish, and live off the land as naturally as she breathed. When Chip met her, he realized he had found someone who understood the world the same way he did, not as something to conquer, but as something to live with. Together, Chip and Agnes began a life that most people could only imagine. They built their home from hard work and patience. They raised their children to respect the land, to take only what they needed, and to always give thanks for what they received. In a world where people measure wealth by money, the Hailstones measured it by self-reliance, by the food they gathered, and by the warmth of their family fire. Years later, when the TV show Life Below Zero began filming, the Hailstones' life suddenly became visible to the entire world. Viewers from big cities and distant countries watched in awe as this family worked through freezing temperatures and endless challenges. People saw Chip fixing tools, teaching his daughters, and laughing through hardships that would break most of us. They saw Agnes cleaning fish on the ice, sharing stories, and holding her family together through every storm. It was raw, real, and honest. There were no scripts, no fancy houses, no shortcuts, just survival. What drew people to Chip wasn't just the danger or the beauty of Alaska. It was his calm. No matter what happened, he rarely lost control. When something broke, he fixed it. When plans failed, he tried again. His steady voice and patient manner made viewers feel safe, even when he stood on ice that could crack beneath him. He became a symbol of strength and simplicity, proof that humans could still live in balance with nature, if they were willing to work hard enough. But Alaska has a way of testing everyone. It doesn't care who you are or how much experience you have. It watches quietly, waiting for mistakes. Chip's calm life would soon be shaken by something no amount of skill could stop. Not a storm, not an animal, but a misunderstanding that would grow into a nightmare. He would face judgment not from the cold, but from the courtroom. And the man who once roamed freely across the tundra would find himself trapped behind bars. Before that fall, though, came years of peace, years when Chip and Agnes built not just a home but a legacy. Their daughters grew strong and capable, learning to trap, fish, and travel across frozen land like their parents. Together, they faced hunger, storms, and endless work, but also laughter, music, and the quiet beauty of life under northern lights. Those who knew them said their bond was unbreakable, built from the kind of trust that only comes from surviving together. When people talk about Chip Hailstone today, they often mention Life Below Zero, the show that turned his family into symbols of Arctic strength. But what most don't realize is that behind every episode was a lifetime of lessons learned the hard way. Every trapline set in the snow carried years of knowledge. Every successful hunt represented hours of patience and failures before it. And every smile on that frozen tundra hid the truth that survival is never easy, even for the best of them. This is the story of Chip Hailstone, the man who went north looking for freedom, found love in the Arctic, and faced more trials than he could have ever imagined. It is the story of how he rose, fell, and rose again, learning that strength isn't just about surviving the cold, it's about surviving yourself. They warned us about Alaska. They warned us that no one could live there forever without being changed. But Chip Hailstone didn't listen. He walked into the storm, built a life out of ice and patience, and showed the world that sometimes the hardest places create the strongest people. They warned us about Chip Hailstone long before the cameras rolled. They said Alaska could break a man, and that no one, no matter how strong, could stand against the land forever. But Chip wasn't just any man. He wasn't built for comfort or praise. He was built for survival. When the world saw him on Life Below Zero, standing in the frozen wind with a quiet smile and a rifle across his shoulder, they saw confidence, maybe even peace. But what they didn't see was the weight he carried behind that calm expression, the risks, the losses, and the choices that would one day change his life forever. In the deep silence of the Arctic, danger doesn't shout. It whispers. It hides in the cold, in the thin ice, in the space between trust and fear. And for Chip, that silence eventually turned into a storm he never saw coming. This is not just a story about snow and survival. It's a story about a man who tried to live free in a world that doesn't always forgive freedom. A husband who stood beside a woman as strong as the land itself. A father who raised his children with patience and love. Even when life tested him in the hardest ways possible, they warned us that living on the edge comes with a price. And when that price finally came due, Chip Hailstone paid it in full. This is his story, the rise, the fall, and the redemption of a man who dared to build a life where most people wouldn't last a single day.